Hi, everyone, and welcome to Book Club with Bay. I am Bay, and this is Bay. Say hi, Bay.
Hi, Bay.
And today we're talking about Daylighters, the last book in the Morganville Vampire series.
We made it!
We made it! We did it! Oh my god, I can't. Huzzah. Huzzah indeed.
This one had plot.
Yeah, it did. It did have plot.
This was probably the most structured plot in the series.
It's, you know what? It's weird because this is... I've got weird feelings about it because this might be one of my favorite books in the series in a way. Yeah. But also because of how good it was on a technical level, it almost doesn't feel like Morganville. Is that bad? I'm sorry. It's not my fault, but it is true. Like
this one probably had. There was no other book with a vibe like this book in the series. Like we had a few different Call of Duty books, but this one had its own unique one.
Yeah. The other thing was I have the ebook pulled up, and Rachel Kane, bless her. I love that she does this. Puts track lists in the back. And this one has stuff like Radioactive and by Imagine Dragons, which is like, I know when did this book come out? Hold on.
When did this book come out?
So obviously the first one came out in 2013. The first one came out in 2006. This one came out in 2013. So obviously the vibe of the universe. Hi, Pat, what's up? The vibes of the universe were different by the time the series ended, right?
Yeah.
So I understand that, but also seeing songs I heard in high school paired with the vibes of 2006 is very weird. It's very strange because I don't know, it's just funny. But yeah, it's just one of those things. But the other thing is maybe another reason why I liked this one is that I'm kind of not glad it's over. I love this series, but I'm glad it's over in a way.
It's gotten very far from book one, hasn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, that said though, I how do you feel about the ending when you're because I feel like
here's the thing. Is there a good way to end a long series like this?
Honestly, I think it's the same as in Bloodlines. It's got the same thing where it's and everything worked out for the best.
Yeah, and everything was amazing. Oh no, literally, I just pulled it up. Everything was perfect is actually a line. Sorry. Oh god, that's funny. Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't hate it. In Bloodlines, it was cringier, I think. But again, what else?
There was no double wedding in Bloodlines.
That's true. But what else do you do? You know what I mean?
And also in more reality, Claire's parents.
Here's the thing. Here's what I propose.
Claire's parents weren't at all upset that she was getting married at 18.
You know what? Here's what I propose. I propose that we, from now until forever, unless it's something particularly egregious, forgive the sins of the epilogue, because here's why. Because I don't know how to do it myself. I don't know that I could have done a better job. I don't know what else you do. I know what Addie and I have planned for the end of Blackwoods, and it's just as cheesy. And honestly, though, at the end of an arduous series, maybe it is just time to lean into the cheese and write a little bit of fan fiction at the end of your book and go, fuck it. And you know what? Kind of like the Cthulhu monster, I'm here for it. I'm here for this kind of campy, dumb fun. and I am in full support of it. So my diagnosis is we're all doing our best. This is hard, and maybe we should just let it happen.
Well, actually, I was about to say as well, the thing I think that makes this a little bit less was the fact that after that bit, then it cuts to the Emily and Oliver scene. And literally what you just said is the theme of that scene. We're doing our best.
Yeah.
And it but it kind of did show look, Claire and Shane, like the core four in their blissful little weird world right now, they're being weird, but vampires are being executed for doing a body bite, a non-consensual body bite and stuff like that. Shit's not going well, but they're trying.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like that she had that at the end instead of just and everything was perfect. And Claire's parents, the overprotective parents that hate Shane and didn't want her to go away for college, they're fine with their 18-year-old daughter getting married to the guy that they don't like. And they're proud of her. And she hasn't finished college yet.
And Claire's parents as an inclusion, if we can just look back on this, sorry. Let's real quick just do a retrospective. Morganville, a retrospective. A video essay right now. Claire's parents as an inclusion, I'm just gonna say it. It's always felt a little odd and unnecessary. They kind of grind everything to a halt. They sort of take a lot of they sort of yoink a lot of independence away from everybody. Yeah. And in a book like this where you have kids that are adults but not adults yet, parents make it weird. Whereas if they were fully adults, then and the parents just had, and the parent-child relationship was more mature and complex, then you could do something. But because the parents are still clearly an authority figure, it's kind of why do all YA protagonists not have parents? Well, because how are you going to save the world if you have parents worried about you? Which it's nice that she has parents worrying about her, but it does kind of throw a wrench in things.
Yeah. And Buffy actually addresses this because her parents are split, so she lives with a mom. But her mom is oblivious to everything going on around her. She works a lot, single mother, all that. But then also Buffy just also sneaks out of the house a lot. And Joyce isn't really keeping tabs on Buffy all that much. And then one episode she does. And it fucks shit up for Buffy. And she's like, Mom, just leave me alone. I'm trying to save the fucking world.
Yeah.
And so it addresses the fact that the world is safer if parents are oblivious.
Yeah. And so it's kind of it kind of leans into that issue of they're at an awkward age where having parents around is more of a hindrance.
Yeah.
Also because I'm sorry, but Claire's parents are fucking incompetent as shit.
Her mother drives me up the wall.
I don't know how they made such a smart child, but good for them. But it's not a situation where for example, in, I don't know, the Vampire Diaries, where you have a Larrick who is an adult, but who is at least in on it.
Yeah.
Because I feel if you're going to have parents here, they either need to be fully in on it or just beyond the Morganville barrier.
Yeah, and this is another actually continuity thing. Claire, Claire specifically said when her parents left town, what about their memories? And they said, don't worry, they will be excluded. They will remember everything. And then it's like she forgot she wrote that, and now her parents have almost no memories of Morganville.
Yeah.
Which, if they did remember, I feel like that it would actually make their acceptance of Claire and Shane getting married a lot more likely. Because now, as far as they're concerned, Claire is still just their meek little girl.
Yeah.
Whereas when they were living there, they realized she's kind of badass.
Right.
And she's like the fourth most important person in town.
Well, and I was going to say, like, you know, you're also kind of yoinking whatever minor character development you might have had, but these books are not super fantastic when it comes to character development.
No, they're not.
They've got good character interactions, which is enough to make it enjoyable. But there's not a whole lot of development and like the shifting of relationships over the course of 15 books. Which is one thing, like, you know, you because like in the first couple books, it kind of gets established like Claire's relationship to Emily, Claire's relationship to Myrnin, and all these other people's relationship to blah. Then it kind of stays that way. Whereas like you might expect, I don't know, maybe like Shane to develop some sort of something with Myrnin or Michael or something, or some sort of more independent something between the other characters in the background to make it feel a little bit more alive, I guess.
Yeah, I think the biggest character development in the series, I think Shane obviously had from kill 'em all to I can tolerate a couple to why are we trying to kill them all?
Yeah.
I don't think Emily really had as much as what it appears to be on the surface because Emily's pragmatic.
But Emily's also not a character that needs an arc.
Yeah. No, like, by the end, she's like, no, we will do better. We will do this. We will do that. But I honestly think that it's actually just Emily being pragmatic. She's like, look, humans have been, they're getting ready to coup.
Yeah.
So, you know, Oliver has had character development.
Yeah.
Eve's character development was she has a different surname now.
Right. Michael turned into a vampire.
Yeah, he was a ghost and then he was a vampire and then now he's not.
But really, like a lot of the roundness, I guess, that the characters, especially our core four, had in like book 1, gets kind of stripped a bit by the time we get to book 15.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of also I don't like the way, like we mentioned it last book when Claire was like, you asked me to marry you, like we're engaged, we're fiancés now, you know. And then in this one, like they're busy, right? They're busy, and then she's just like, I'm ready to get married now, by the way. People don't talk like this.
No, they don't.
Like even if you feel secure in your relationship, like you might bring up like, you know, the abstract idea that matter of factly, but like when you just like tentatively whatever, you know, being like, yeah, like maybe one day we'll do a thing. You're not just walking down the street and you just look at them and go, I'm ready to get married like right now. You kind of dance around it a bit. And you make your man mad at you because it takes you that long to get it out. He's just like, just fucking talk to me, damn it. And even then, it's kind of just like, look, I don't know, just maybe I guess like I guess I'd be down to do a thing like sooner rather than later. But if that's not okay with you, then we can wait. It's fine.
Well, yeah, like, you know, look, those conversations happen over the course of months, and like,
no,
And they're complex conversations. I mean,
yes.
There's a lot to talk about. Like,
well, it's also a very emotionally vulnerable thing to come out with. Like, like if you're down to like get married today and he says no, like that's going to be soul crushing.
Well, like, yeah, like it's a complex conversation, and it also takes a while to like work a lot of things out, like where you both think you are, what's important to you, what's factoring into your decision, other than just the fact that I really, really love you. Because at that point you're like, I'm an adult. There more has to be factoring into this, so you have to talk about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, but also Claire is 18, so I don't expect her to have adult conversations with Shane.
And yet they're married now.
But yeah, like, sorry. So just like as the Morganville in retrospective, because I think that's interesting for us to do real quick. Is just like, it makes me feel bad to criticize the series because I love it so much. But I think it's more of like, for one thing, it shows that something does not have to be perfect to be perfectly enjoyable. First of all,
Morganville is a perfectly enjoyable series. Just don't try to analyze it.
Right. So just to be clear, this doesn't mean it's not a good series. It is. It's really fun. But I also think it's an interesting jumping off point to talk about some things like, for example, I think the core four could have done with, first of all, keeping a lot of their more interesting personality traits throughout the book and exploring more of those kinds of things. Because like in the first book, like, we know more about Shane's personality in the first book than I feel like we do now. Like,
his personality now is, I love Claire.
Yeah, right. Like, again, you get kind of like personality dilution, and like, yeah, Claire's academic interest has been kind of shifted over the course of the series, but it's been so shifted that it feels like it's not there anymore.
I can't remember the last time she said the word physics.
Right, because she's really only interested in plot relevant academics rather than the joy of academia.
Yeah.
And and Shane was like a hardcore lazy basement dwelling gamer, and and it's, even if like he's not interested in that anymore, but what now? Like, what's he interested in now? Because we do have enough downtime to explore that. And so I think had some of that just been in there, we would have kept the roundness. We would have lost a lot less as far as the characters go. And I also think more interesting relationships could have been better established between other characters. Like, even, I don't know, like you could have had some kind of more interesting dynamic between like Richard and Shane. Like, why not?
Well, and there was
like,
so
maybe
much to build on with Richard.
Right. Like maybe like they talk to each other easier, and like Richard just naturally trusts Shane for something, like whatever, like but something to make the shifting dynamics feel a bit more alive, especially when Shane and Michael are going through their bro, we're breaking up. Oh, I love, all that stuff.
Yeah, bro.
Like giving both of them something else to do, and even giving like Eve something else to do, or like, because Eve in the first book, Oliver is like her mentor.
Yeah.
Maybe weaving in like, but you kind of don't get the impression that she has any kind of complex feelings about Oliver.
Except, and I feel like this is probably just stuff carried over from earlier in the series. Like, and I think it was a nice way to come full circle, but I think it just needed to be built upon more. Oliver is who gives her away at the end of this book.
Right, but there's not.
But there needed to, you're right, there needed to be more of that rebuilding.
Right, and it would have given all of the core four
Because they've been antagonistic for most of the series.
Right. It would have, and if we had done something with that, like force Eve into a situation where she has to work with Oliver, and this would have just taken a tiny bit of plot shuffling, like, and not really changed anything plot wise, but it would have changed the character arcs. But if you had just kind of forced Eve to be the one dealing with Oliver a lot or something like that, and, you know, it would have given the core four individually more to do.
Yeah, and I've just saw that as well. Like, I mean, perhaps they've had them. I don't know. But like, Shane and Michael are best friends. They don't, and we've had multiple scenes from both of their perspectives. Have we ever seen them have a deep conversation?
No.
It's all been dude bro. Like the deepest they've gone is like, bro, you need to get over the fact that I'm a vampire. I can't, bro. Like that's the deepest they've gone.
Yeah, like,
anyway.
They don't get a moment to just talk like people. And yeah, and like really working on their relationship with each other would have been cool. And like, here's the thing. Again, it's not that like the books are bad. In fact, this series is why I love Core 4 so much and why I use them so much in my own writing, because I think that for a lot of books, not all, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the story or the situation or whatever doesn't allow itself. But I think a Core 4 is amazing. Blackwoods has a Core 4. Rosie has a Core 4. And it's because of this series that I'm like, Core 4s are great. And the reason why I love them so much is because, first of all, the dynamics within the Core 4 are great.
Oh, the dynamics between this Core 4 are amazing.
Right. But also, it's few enough main characters that you can give all of them lots to do. And you can use them all as anchor points, because like, that's how I think of it is, you know, the Claire's our main anchor point, but you know, you can use Eve as the anchor point to Oliver. You could use Shane as the anchor point to like Richard.
Yeah.
And you could use Michael as like the anchor point to Emily even, or somebody, or like whatever.
Yeah.
But you can use all these people as anchor points, which also helps the reader categorize different things in their brain too. Because a good way to help readers remember lots of characters is by going, you know, this is
associated with this.
Yeah, like this is Eve's mentor. Okay, like, you know, and then also this is this person's like, okay, it helps your readers just keep everything straight, which is really useful too. And I think that could have been polished more.
Yeah, honestly, it'd be quicker to write a list of things in this series that didn't need any more polishing. Right now, off the top of my head, there's one thing: Mernon. Mernon didn't need any more polishing.
Mernon was perfect. Like, he's great. Although, again, one thing I would have loved. This is not about Mernon as a character, but I actually would have loved if our Core 4 had eventually developed some sort of more complex relationship with Mernon, independently of Claire.
In series, he's still calling Eve Shreve.
Well, and to kind of, I guess, give you a better example of what I mean. Like, think about when like you're growing up, right? And you have an aunt, and your relationship to your aunt is anchored through like your mom, like it's your mom's sister. It's anchored through the adults in your life, right? Like that's usually how you're triangulating that relationship. But then once you grow up, once you can talk, especially once you're an adult, you actually start to develop a relationship with like your aunt independently of your mom.
Yeah, so, like my mom's sister-in-law and I have been chatting a lot the last couple of years.
Well, it's like even with Noah's mom and I, obviously, and also like Noah's parents and I, and my parents and him, you know, obviously when you first get into a relationship, your anchor point to those people are your significant other. But his mom calls me now. And so it would have been interesting to actually see them develop a relationship with Myrnan independent of Claire.
Yeah. But it doesn't happen.
And it's something that like we definitely had room for.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, like Miranda, she, like, initially we met her as Eve's wacky little acquaintance type thing, but then her and Claire end up developing probably a stronger friendship than what Miranda and Eve had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's possible. Like, right. She did it. She knows how to do it. She just did it. But.
And I think that kind of thing starts to hurt more or starts to damage a series more the further you get into it, simply because after 15 books without shifting dynamics, it's a little less interesting, I guess, like the dynamics themselves, not because they're bad, but because they don't change.
Yeah, I mean, well, like the relationships of the core four were established book one.
Right.
Like Shane and Claire started a thing in book one. Michael and Eve started a thing in book one. Book one, Eve and Claire instantly bonded and became BFFs. Eve's relationship to Shane has not changed. You know, like Shane and Michael have had the most ups and downs throughout the series, but you still always knew that they go back to being dude bros.
Yeah.
So even the dynamics of the core four has not shifted throughout the series.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Can you go ahead and recap the last book?
Yes. Okay. So last book, Claire went off to MIT for a minute. And there she was working with a Dr. Irene Anderson, and they were working on her vampire mood adjusting device. And some wacky shit happened. Claire's roommate got kidnap-a-doodled, and turns out there's this Daylighters Foundation thing that I don't even know if we knew what they were called in the last book. I think we did. And they're an anti-vamp group, and Dr. Irene Anderson is one of them. The whole gang ends up in Boston, and they escape and have Irene kidnapped, and then they get back to Morganville to be like, the Daylighters are coming, and then all the vampires get staked. And that's the last book.
Okay. So
we start this book off immediately where we left off.
Right. Which is, I think, one of the first times we've done that.
Yeah, there's usually the Call of Duty books pick up within an hour of where the last one left off.
Sorry.
I think the Call of Duty book. That's okay. I think it's the Call of Duty books in this one that are the main ones. Yeah. And when Bishop comes to town.
Right. So the Daylighters are here, and we have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And just as a note, we've come a really long way as far as the relationship between the vampires and the humans. A lot has happened.
A really long way.
At least, okay, because we just spent a lot of time talking about what we think could have been better. Something that was done well, though, was actually the changing dynamics within the town itself.
Yeah.
The fact that there was actual evolution within the town made it actually feel like time was passing. So I will give them that, or give her that. That was done very well. But anyway, so I'm trying to figure out how to.
So
how do we talk?
Mernon, Michael. Sorry. Mernon, Michael, Oliver, and Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
They've all been staked. They're getting loaded into cars. Eve's freaking the fuck out. Claire's just in shock. Shane's like, and then like, take us to the leader, Hannah. Hannah, how could you do this? And she's like, there's a new sheriff in town, guys. And they're like, but you're the police chief. And she's like, that's a metaphor. We're going to go see the big man. And so they go see the big man. What is his name again? I read it today.
1 second.
Reese?
So did I. Yeah.
Something Reese? What's his name?
How do you spell Reese?
I don't know if it's Reese or Reeves. Fallon Reese? Reese Fallon?
Oh, yeah. Reese Fallon. God. R-H-Y-S. God, why are there so many ways to spell Reese? That's awful. Sorry.
It's one of those names.
All the Reeses need to get together, have a convention, and decide on the spelling.
There's a few names that need that.
Okay. So
so they go to see Reese, and he's like, and also Claire, like, okay, so I think Claire's only been gone a couple weeks at this point.
Oh, real quick, can I read this passage? Because
read the passage.
This was so funny. I'm sorry. This is like one of the first things in the book. This made me laugh. Here's how this is going to go. You're going to behave yourselves, get out, and walk with us into the building. And you're going to act like civilized young ladies while we introduce you to the man in charge. Or what? Or you'll end up handcuffed, maybe tasered. And the end result will be exactly the same, only with a lot less smiling, Hannah said. So I'd really rather skip all the unpleasantries. I'm like, what the fuck, Hannah? I was like, okay, Hannah, go off.
Turns out Hannah's still a good girl. She's it's fine. Like, she's not meaning to be a bitch right now.
This was a good opening, though. I was interested. Like, the immediate Hannah just being like, here's what you're going to do. I was like, all right. I was like, okay.
And
so by the way, the vampires being staked does not mean they're dead.
Yeah, no, they're not dead. They're not dead. They're just temporarily paralyzed. Yes, they go to see. Oh, and while they're driving there, they see that like some old rundown part of town is like getting bulldozed and new houses are getting built, and it's like like Morganville's all happy and people are walking and laughing and smiling and everything's great, but it's like coming up the subjugation of like an entire race, so like it's bad. I will say, like, this book does. See, what this book does is what kind of starts to do, and what I think could have done better is explored the morality of the situation a bit more. Like, they kind of do, right? But they don't really. It's all on a shallow level. Like, for example, regardless of what anyone may think of the series, the Ugly series does a really good job at the at least exploring the complexities of free will versus universal happiness.
Yes,
because they have a chip in their brain to make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's the wiser. Everyone's happy. Everyone's pretty. Everyone's this. Everyone's that. But they have a chip in their brain,
right?
That they don't know about. That was placed. Oh, not a chip. They've got a lesion in their brain that was put there without knowledge or consent, and it's a thing. And that's a really interesting thing. Like in this one, everyone's safe. Everyone's happy. But all of the vampires, many of whom aren't evil, are being, like we find out later, they're locked away and being effectively murdered.
Right.
Like 3/4 of them are getting murdered.
But for the good of everyone, ...
Yeah, so it's one of those things that, again, she goes into it on a very, very shallow level, and it could have been a lot more of an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
But this is also, it's Morganville though. Like it's not meant to be deep. So I'll forgive it. But they go there and Reese Fallon is like, Eve Rosser, just like, no, Eve Glass, and he's like, well, we'll have to discuss the legitimacy of your marriage another time. But then and she's like, excuse fucking you. And he's like, anyway, the vampires are being detained and everyone's happy, so just smile and go along, please. And they're like, no. And he's like, yes. And they're like, fuck you. And he's like, kindly no thank you. And you can leave now. And so then they leave. Do they go and see the vamps next? I think they do.
Yeah.
They go to the mall that the town that didn't have, because Eve lamented the fact that the town didn't have a mall, but it turns out they did have a mall. It just closed down because it was bringing too many tourists, which isn't good when you have a secret society running your town. I somehow don't.
So right now it's like empty.
Yeah, I honestly though, I do not see the mall in Morganville bringing more people than the university.
Yeah, no, and usually, if there's a university, well, especially at this time period, a mall could have survived on a university.
Yeah, but they go there. Shane's freaking the fuck out. And so he leaves. Michael's like, they're feeding us. Like they're acting like, and they're talking to Michael like Michael's been there for days, and they're like, Michael, how are they treating you? And he's like, I just woke up 5 minutes ago. That's in reality, that's what he says. I just woke up 5 minutes ago. I still don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But instead, he's like, no, they're feeding us. I'm doing good. We're safe. We're this, we're that. You know, just go. Forget about me. And I'm like, you've literally woken up, Michael. You've had time to wake up, and that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the vampires aren't like, they've all got sharp collars on, and it's not good. And so then what did they do next? Did they go home? Yes, they go home.
Yeah.
The house is painted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and also as they're driving through town as well, like all the houses are either freshly painted or have signs up being like, please don't fine us, we're getting ready to paint, or they have fines for not painting yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they get back to the glass house, and the house is painted, the lawn is pretty. And they're like, what the fuck is happening? And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, it sounds nice, right? Like, you go away for a week, and then you come home and your house is freshly painted and your lawn actually looks nice. It sounds like a nice idea in theory.
Right.
I would be so upset.
I would be too.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset if, like, for example, Stixie was home while I was away and I came home to a freshly painted house. Well, maybe this house because it's brick. So I'd be like, why the fuck did you paint the brick house? But like an old wooden Victorian house, yeah. Like, but if we're gonna wait together and there's no one home, and I get home and the house is freshly painted, I'm calling the police, because that's.
Is that vandalism?
I feel like I'm gonna wake up to a dead puppy nailed to my front door in the next week by a stalker.
Yeah.
Is it vandalism if you've made it pretty? Is there a statute that covers non-consensual lawn maintenance and house painting?
Destruction or damage to.
But that's not destruction or damage, because like the house
hold on. No. If it's a color you don't, if it's a color you don't like.
No, because the house was white. It was just old, faded, peeling white, and now it's fresh white. Is there a law that covers. I mean, like there would obviously be trespassing, maybe. Actually, because I know in a lot of places
it's destruction. So I don't know.
I mean, because I know that there's also
facing, begging. Yeah, I guess not.
I mean, because I know that also a lot of trespassing charges.
Although I don't know if that's happened.
They're not welcome.
Well, although because I know that there has been like issues where people have done stuff like,
you know what,
painted things in public but made them cute, and they still get in trouble.
That's different though, because what you're doing is putting a fresh coat of paint of the same color on a house. What I might do, because I'm subbed to a few different lawyers on Facebook that do live streams, I might super chat one of them and pose them with the question.
Yeah, do that, because I'm
be like, would it be illegal, and if so, what are the charges of making someone's laundry and painting their house the same color but fresh without their knowledge or consent?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, wait. There actually is something though that I know that would be a crime. They installed a new weather vane on the roof.
Okay.
So that there would
Why would that be though?
That would be damage to the property, because if there was a previous weather vane, they've removed it and stolen it. So destruction and theft and damage. And if there wasn't one, they'd had to like nail that in there, so they've caused damage to the property.
Okay.
So the weather vane is the clearest crime in this, I suppose. But yeah, they're not happy though. They get home and the house is pretty and they're offended. And Evie's like, please tell me that no one went inside the house. And Hannah's like, no one went inside the house. This was just an exterior thing. We thought you'd be happy. And Eve's just like, well, you could have asked first. And you know what I will say? This house is so good to them. The house deserves better. The house deserved this paint job.
I mean, yeah, but it's still non-consensual.
But like Claire ends up having the thought after the shock wears down that like this is kind of highlighting just how awful we've been to the house. It's like, yeah, if it wasn't for the house, Michael would be permanently dead. You would be permanently dead. Miranda would be permanently dead. Multiple people that have been thrown out of your house by the house just going, I don't want you here, out, and the house doth yeet, and it was a thing. Like, the house has been a good egg, and they've been very mean to it by letting it get all shabby. But they go in, everything looks the same. They miss the house. Like, Claire's just like, I missed your house. And then Eve's like, I'm going to go do research in my room. I'm thinking, what the fuck are you going to research, Eve? But, you know. Shane that's later. Shane makes bad spaghetti, even though he could make spaghetti really well a few books earlier. But he makes bad spaghetti because now he can't cook. I don't know. And they're like, no, we're going to go and get the hot dogs and burgers. So then they do that. And where are they going? Oh, they're going to see Hannah. Oh, because he's really unsure about his dog bite, because he got bit by a dog last book. I forgot to say that. I
forgot about that. Oh my god. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's random shit.
Yeah, he got bit by a dog, and then he goes to Boston, and the bite is itchy, and he's been acting a bit weird around vamps. And then it was really bad when he was in the mall, and he's like, I'm not okay with this. So then he goes to see Hannah, and Hannah there's a kerfuffle, but they end up getting in. And Hannah like gets out her like radio jamming tech, and she's like, "Okay, we can talk now. The bugs have been neutralized." And they're like, "So you're not Team Daylighter?" And Hannah's like, "No, but I'm a dog." Yeah, Shane, you got bit by a dog. I got bit by a dog, and now we turn into dogs. But I don't turn into a dog because I get special injections. Because he's like, "Well, you're police chief, so you can be the pack leader instead of like, you know, the mud." I can't remember what the analogy was, but she used the thing. And she was like, "Yeah, so we're dogs. You're not gonna like vampires. Yeah, that it's a thing. Soz." And Shane's like, "But I don't want to be a dog." And she's like, "Too bad you're a dog." And at this point, I don't know if we're supposed to think that it's just an analogy. I think I don't think they actually explicitly state that they turn into dogs.
No, they don't at this point.
No, so it's all analogy at this point. But she's like, "I'm doing my best. Okay, I'm trying." And they're like, "Okay, but you still team us?" And she goes, "In my heart, yes, but in my actions, no, because I can't disobey." And then they just drive around and being like, "Morganville's so creepy. Everyone's happy." And yeah, and then Claire's starting to have a little bit of a morality crisis. She's like, "Am I the villain now, complaining on freeing the vampires and taking away the happy?" And it's like, "No, you're not the villain. You're doing the right thing." What do they do? I'm just browsing through paragraphs, and there's just like so much nothing. Okay, they go home. Shane showers, and then Claire showers, and then he's naked on her bed, and then they forget about everything, and sexy time occurs.
Yeah.
And then it's time to wake up, and then it's still naked. So now it's time to get dressed.
Yeah.
Eve's decided she's going to go do a rescue on Michael, and they're like, "Okay." So Eve and Claire are going to go because Shane's like, I'm a dog. I can't go. And they're like, I really wish that was actually what he said. But then like Eve's going to go get ready, and then they're like, "Oh crap, we have another person that lives here. I wonder how she's going. We haven't thought about her in 2 books." So then they're like, Shane's like, "Oh, she's probably upstairs." So then Claire goes upstairs to the secret room, and Miranda's up there, and she's like, "Hey, bud," and she's like, and Miranda's just like, "No one has been here for 2 weeks. I've been alone. No one even said goodbye. Why are you here? Leave me alone." People came in the house, they painted it. It's violating, it's weird, and they want to tear the house down because the house didn't like them being here, and they felt it. And they're like, "Well, that's not good." So then Claire goes to Eve, and she's like, "Hey, Eve, we can't go rescue Michael because the Daylighters may want to tear the house down, and if the house gets torn down, Miranda's gone. She dies." So Eve's like, "Well, damn it." So then they have to go and get fire safety gear, and they get fire grenades, which like fire putty-outy grenades.
Yeah.
Claire also picks up Shane's car because he has a car. That's actually one of the short stories, how he gets the car. And it's Murdered Out. I'm pretty sure it's referred to in this one as Murdered Out, like in this book, but this short story is actually called Murdered Out. And it was literally because someone once described to Rachel Kane that a full like black on black car, like they I don't know if she overheard it or read it or someone said it to her, but they called a car that looked like that Murdered Out, and she's like, "That's so cool. I'm going to put it in a book." So she did. So he has a black on black car.
Yeah.
I can't remember what kind of car. It's a muscle car. I know that much. And it's murdered out. And he timeshares it with the mechanic. And then who also sets himself on fire because he wants to be a stuntman. So they're like, give me the car and all of your fire suppression stuff. He's like, why? And he's like, because Jenna would want you to. Because Jenna, psychic from previous book, is now dating him. And he's like, okay, that makes sense. So then he gives it all. And they set the house up to be fire safe because they're worried that the daylighters are going to come and burn the house down. Which makes sense because it's a wooden house. Very easy way to get rid of the house is to burn it down. It's a very rude way, but a very easy way.
Yeah.
And then what did they do? Fire stuff. I'm
looking.
Shane is happy. Claire brings him grenades. I know that much. Who is Simmons and why is she talking to him? What is a Simmons?
Detective Simmons.
Oh, she goes home. Yeah, she goes home. The others aren't there. And in she goes home. Shane is cleaning his shotgun on the porch, talking to the police who are asking to go in the house. And he's like, not without a warrant, and I have a shotgun, and I'm not afraid to use it. And cops are like, okay. And then Shane and Eve are not home for whatever reason, and then the police come back later with a warrant. And Claire's like, okay, come on in. We have nothing to hide. Because at that point they didn't, or so she thought. Except there's a body in the basement. And she's like, well, this is really awkward. And they're like, I know. And she's like, grenade! And tosses a fire suppression grenade down the basement stairs and yeets. And Wild Merlin appears. And he's like, well, hi. And she's like, you stink. And he's like, we must run. So then they run. And they go to Jenna's because that's where Miranda is, and Shane and Eve have made their way back there, and everyone's just like, how did a dead body end up there? I don't know. Do you know? No. And then it's just like, this is a pleasant conversation. And they're like, man, and how'd you get out? It's like, well, also the person that is dead is a guard from the mall. Yeah. And they're like, man, and how did you get out? And he's like, well, my escape was going quite well until a guard spotted me, so I had to kill him. And they're like, what did you do with his body, Merlin? He's like, well, obviously I left it in your basement. Where else was I going to put him? You weren't home yet, and I had to put him down. And they're like, excuse you, that's very rude. And he's just like, I don't see what the problem is. That's something I love about Merlin. Like, he's listening to them freaking out, and then he's just like, I don't see what the problem is. I don't see how this could cause you any sort of bother. Everything will be fine. And they're like, you killed someone and you left him in our house. That's rude. And then he's like, hey, look, I have some stuff I need to go collect. And Jenna's like, heaven help me, I'll drive. And Claire's like, can you get his bipolar meds? And she's like, yes, I will get his bipolar meds. So then they're doing that. And then Miranda starts freaking out. She's like, you need to get to the house now. And they're like, crap, they're going to burn the house down. So then they go to yeet, but then like police. So then they see Monica and they're like, Monica, let us in, because she's outside her house. And she's like, no. And they're like, let us in. And she's like, fine. So then she lets them in. And she has a chihuahua named Channing. And a very pink apartment. And then they steal her car to drive to their house. She comes along and then she leaves. And we never see Monica again, I believe. Yeah. We don't see her again, do we?
No.
That there is our final viewing of Monica Morale from Morganville.
Yeah.
her drunk with her chihuahua. And so they go into the house, and there's two weird things in the house. One, they is a woman because they know this because it's wearing a dress. The other one is believed to be a guy. But they're not people, but they're not anything. And they're like, what the fuck is happening? And Shane's like, I'm going to go get weapons. And Claire's like, okay. And then they finish transforming into dogs, sniff Claire and walk away. And she's like, okay, that was really uncomfortable and weird. I'm going to go upstairs. So then she goes upstairs into the secret room because she figures if anything's going down in the house, it'll be in the secret room. And lo and behold, Amelie is there, covered in blood and dying.
Yeah.
And Claire's like, Amelie, what's going on? And she's like, you must run. And she's like, no, I won't run. I will save you. I will protect you. And she's like, no, you must run. And she's like, no, I'm not leaving you. And she goes, well, can I have a sippy sip? And then she has a sippy sip. And she's like, wipe my blood off. And the dogs are like trying to break into the room as this is going on. And she's like, now, Claire, you must run. They won't kill me. They'll rip me to shreds and then take me to Fallon, but I will be fine. And she's like, well, where were you trying to go? And she goes, I was trying to go to Black. If Black is the other human vampire town a while away from a few books back. What book was that? Kiss of Death?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Claire's like, well, you should go to Black. And she's like, Claire, there's two dogs breaking in. I can't get away. And she's like, yes, you can. And then she gives Amelie a big hug, gets herself covered in Amelie blood, and then yeets over the stairs as the dogs break in. And I think one of the dogs follows her. And Claire's just running because, like, obviously the dog thinks she's a vampire because she smells like one. But if a dog rips her to shreds, she won't recover like a vampire will. She'll just die.
Yeah.
So she's running and she's like, Shane, help me. And then Shane walks out and he's half dog. And she's like, I was not anticipating this complication. How could I have forgotten that my boyfriend's a dog? And then Shane was still Shane enough to, like, not kill her. And she yeets and gets away. And she's like, well, hopefully Amelie got away, but I'm not sticking around to find out. So then they get away. And then somehow she ends up going back to the place with Mernon at this point. Myrna meets up with her. It's like, I did what I needed to do. Let's go back to the mall now. She's like, okay, but Amelie, and he's like, well, hopefully she got away. And so Claire goes back to the mall with Myrna, and she finds out that he snuck out via sewer pipes.
Yeah.
Drainage pipes of some kind. Garbage chutes.
Mernon snuck out.
In a gross way, because they're kind of covered in muck and slime. And Jessie is there, and Myrna. Oh, also, sorry, she goes to headquarters and hears that Eve's been drugged by Fallon, because Eve's went to talk to Fallon, and he's like, I'm going to go take you to see your husband. And she goes, so they go. Mernon cleans himself up. Jessie's standing guard over Claire because all the vamps are hungry, because it turns out what they're actually doing, what they're feeding them, is drugged in some way that it's not actually offering them any sort of nourishment.
Right.
I guess. So they're all effectively starving. And Michael tries to eat Claire for a minute and then gets stopped. And then Fallon comes in with... Oh, Claire also discovers cure stuff on those folders of stuff. And also, you know what's really sad? The vampire who's Mr. Ransom, the guy whose folder she finds with the picture of him dead in it.
Yeah.
He's in one of the short stories.
Okay.
And that scene is a lot sadder after you've had the short story with him in it.
That's depressing.
Yeah, he's like that weird, creepy, like that weird old guy that everyone thinks is creepy.
Okay.
But it turns out he's just like really awkward and introverted and actually really sweet.
That's sad.
Yeah, so I mean, it does. I mean, like his image probably wasn't helped by the fact that he runs he's a vampire running a funeral parlor, and he doesn't have any friends, and it's just like, but it's sad. But yeah, it looks like they're trying to cure, and there's a 73% chance of them dying, which isn't good. Those aren't good odds. And so they rock up at the mall, and Eve is there, and he's like, Michael, you and Eve are no longer married. A new law was passed. Vampires and humans can't be married, therefore your marriage isn't annulled, and it never happened. And take the cure, Michael. Take it. You can be human. And he's like, fuck you. And Eve's like, yeah, fuck you. And he's like, Michael, you're gonna have the cure whether you like it or not, but if you do it willingly, there's a better chance you'll survive. And then they're like, pick 20 vampires, and he goes to take Jesse, and Vernon's freaking the fuck out. And then Oliver, noble Oliver, volunteers as tribute instead of Jesse. Yeah. How would you feel if what happened with Oliver happened any other way?
I don't know.
I think it worked out for the best.
Yeah, like it worked out. Like it was fine.
But yeah, so while they're doing that, they're taking Eve for vampire aversion therapy. And also he finds Claire as well. So they're also going to take Claire for vampire aversion therapy because they're like, it's weird that you guys, like, Eve, it's really weird that you want to bang a dead guy, and Claire, it's really weird that you want to be friends with dead people. So you get to have aversion therapy. I can't remember how Claire gets free.
I don't remember.
But they start Eve on her aversion therapy straight away. They inject her with something that makes her feel sick, and then have a vampire come in and bite her and stuff like that. And it's a whole thing where effectively they're going to train her to feel really, really sick and nauseous and scared whenever a vampire is
around.
And then Claire somehow gets free, and then she rescues Eve, and then she makes gas of some kind and knocks people out, and then they get to where the vampires are. And they rip everything out of, like, all the IVs out of everyone. It's too late, though. They've already had their cures. Oliver wakes up and starts grabbing at them, and he's got a heartbeat, and then he's comatose. And they're like, well, that's weird. We got to take him with us. They obviously take Michael with them too, but Michael is human.
Yeah.
He wakes up and he's human. And he's like, oh my God, I'm human. And Eve's like, you're human. He's like, I'm human. And then they go to escape, but then some chick that's working with the Daylighters bumps into him, and she's like, Michael, you survived. And she's like a massive Michael groupie, and she hisses at Eve, and Eve's like, that you're fucking weird. This chick's keyring is a picture of Michael. Like, I don't see what the point of this whole thing was. I think it was just to be like, hey, Michael's a rock star, remember? Also, remind me about his rock starness when we get to the wedding scene.
Okay.
Because I was not disappointed. But they end up taking her car and yeeting, and they're getting chased. And they're like, we need Oliver to wake up, and because they rescue Oliver, they take him. And Oliver has reverted back to vampire, which happens in, I think, 2%. And so they need him to wake up, and so like Claire is like, have some blood, and he wakes up, and she's like, police are chasing, and he's like, okay, and then he does it and jumps and car crashes, and Then he's like, I must eat. And Claire's like, don't kill them. He's like, I'm hungry. And she's like, you can eat, just don't kill. And he's like, okay. So then he does. And then they go to black. And Emily is there. She got away. And they're like, what's going on? And they're like, shit's going on. That's what's going on. And then they're like, okay, well, Claire and Shane, we need to plot. So you two go in sexy time. And they're like, okay, we'll go sexy time. And then it's the next day.
Yeah.
That's what happened. They wake up and walk into the room, and Emily has a stake in her chest. And they're like, well, this isn't good. And Emily opens her eyes and she's like, chill. It's plastic. But it's designed to look like the daylighters ones, where when it pulls out, like liquid silver goes poof, and
yeah.
And then they stake Oliver and Morley too. And Mrs. Grant's like, okay, humans are black, let's go. And then Claire's like, you don't want your peeps to be cured? And she's like, no. She's like, look, maybe if it had a better success rate than 1 in 4. But like, these are our brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, fathers, children. We don't want 3/4 of them dead, okay? If it had like a 95% success rate, maybe we'd be down. So black is team core 4. Also, sorry, I forgot. The night before, Shane started to dog again. He started to go all doggy again.
Yeah.
And went to do a pounce, and Michael jumped in front because he forgot that he wasn't a vampire. And Shane bit him, and then Shane was no longer a dog. So they worked out that the cure cures the dogs. And that's when they sexy timed.
Yeah.
How did you like the play on the werewolves in this? I mean, it was inevitable that they were going to get brought in. You can't have a vampire series without a werewolf. Oh, well, I guess you can, because
11th Hour Werewolves is a choice. It's a choice.
Not natural werewolves, though. Alchemy werewolves.
Yeah, but it's a choice.
Oh,
I mean,
that's right as well. We forgot to say as well, Rhys Fallon was a priest who studied alchemy with Merlin, and Merlin had a crazy fit and killed him, so he turned him into a vampire. And then Rhys killed himself, and now he's like death to all vampires. That's the whole point of his crusade. Sorry, we forgot his motivation.
Yeah. I guess, like, it's a choice, again. And the only reason why I say that is that we've done so much in this series, and the lore hasn't really expanded, like, while we've been here, I guess.
Yeah, we have vampires, then alchemy, and a virus.
Yeah.
And then what are vampy-vamps? And I guess now alchemy created werewolves.
So what makes it weird is more that we haven't been doing this, I guess. And I don't know, like it was a little weird, I guess. Like, it's fine, but there is just something a little strange about, like, oh, it's the last book, werewolves. And it's not because it's a new thing, it's more because, again, this has been pretty limited to vampires.
Yeah, I will say though, the dogs have been the most foreshadowed thing in the series. Nothing else has been foreshadowed at all.
Where was it foreshadowed?
When Shane got bit last book.
Oh, yeah, that. But
it was
just
a one book foreshadow.
It's just one of those things.
It's literally the only thing that's been foreshadowed in the entire series. But yes, they go back to town. They hand over the vamps. They've decided they're not going to handcuff Eve and Michael because they're like, well, it's believable that. Oh, because this was decided beforehand. Because Claire and Shane walked up to Morganville in handcuffs. So I also don't know why they staked them and handcuffed them before they left Black. Like, it's a long car drive. It's like a 4-hour car drive. I feel like it would have been nicer to just pull over like about half an hour outside of town and do it there.
Yeah.
But they decided that they wouldn't do it to Eve and Michael because then that way, one, Eve can free Claire and Shane. It would be believable that even Michael would be Team Daylighter now because Michael is cured.
Yeah.
So they get there. Eve and Shane get taken. Sorry, Claire and Shane get taken by Hannah. And Shane ends up in a fight again. Oh, sorry, no. Then they go to the town center where they're having a big thing to celebrate that Emily's going to die. And so, like, the vampires are lined up staked in the sun. And the school choir is singing "Here Comes the Sun" while the crowd is doing this. How did you feel?
It's a lot. It's again.
It was one of the funniest mental images I've had in this whole series.
No, yeah, for sure. It's a choice.
I mean, at least it's meant to be that. The choice that it was meant to be that. Because like Shane just like goes, well, that's a bit on the nose, isn't it? It's a bit weird. And Fallon's like, look at my beautiful Michael. He's now human. Huzzah. And Claire gets her hands free, goes for Hannah's gun. Hannah's like, Claire, I'm a Marine. What the fuck? And she's like, look, can you just pretend like I got you off guard? And Hannah's like, yeah, sure. And so Claire takes Hannah's gun. And then Michael's like fighting. He somehow manages to win a fight with no arms because he's still got his arms restrained. Then they take Hannah away. They cure her. Then they go back. And the vamps are free. And they're like, it's time to take back the town. And Fallon rips the stake out of Emily, expecting her to die instantly. She's like, well, thank you. That was getting rather uncomfortable. People have your stakes removed too, and they're like, well, this is rude. And then a minor fight ensues. Morley dies, which is actually kind of sad because, like we haven't seen him for a bit, but, it was a bit sad that he died.
Yeah.
And then Fallon is like, and Emily is like, she knows how to politic because Fallon's like, I'm going to kill you. And she's like, okay. And she just like kneels before him and she goes, okay, kill me. And he's like, excuse you, what? And she's like, kill me in front of all these people. Kills a defenseless woman in front of all these people. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to do anything. You're just going to have to murder me in front of everyone. And he's like, what are you playing at? And she's like, look, I get that you're upset with your vampy daddy. I get that you're upset with Mernon. But you're having a tantrum and it's rude. And you're just killing people. And everyone in the crowd is just like, well, this is getting really weird. And then so he holds Jesse hostage. She's like, I'm going to do a thing. And then is like, no. But then I can't remember what happens, but he gets overpowered and they don't kill him. And they're like, yay, we won. And they're like, let's go home. He's like, you don't have the home. And they're like, well, fuck. So then they go back to the glass house. It's about to get bulldozed. And Miranda's just sitting inside. Look, Miranda should have just stood him, like, banged on the window and said, hey, I'm in here and I refuse to leave.
Yeah.
And then every time, you know. But no, she's hiding in their house and it's about to get bulldozed. And then there's a fight to stop the bulldozer and they win. And then they're like, daylight is gone, and they're like, okay, we're leaving. And then they're like, okay, bye. And then Eve and Michael and Claire and Shane all get like marriage licenses and decide to have a double wedding.
Yep.
And then, so they get married and it's beautiful and everything was perfect. And then at the reception, Michael gets up on stage and he plays, I need to find it. I should have found it before. I should have found it. Where is it? Where is it? Let's go. No. Where is Michael getting up on stage to freaking do a thing? Okay. Even at his wedding. At least it wasn't achingly beautiful, but it was an aching, amazing song. At his wedding. I don't think there's ever been a song written by Michael Glass that wasn't aching.
It always hurts. It's always painful, you know?
It's just so full of love that it hurts the soul.
I'll be right back.
Give me 1 second. So yeah, everything goes well. They have a wedding. They all dance and be merry. Claire and Shane cut out early to go bang. Miranda is living with Jenna. She just has to visit the glass house on occasion to stay a thing. And then we go to the epilogue, which is Emily and Oliver, and they're like, look, and it's effectively like vampires aren't allowed to just do hunty bad stuff anymore. They need to behave themselves. A few of them that have been naughty have been executed because Emily's like, no. We're not monsters. We can do better. And Oliver's like, it's going to be difficult. And Emily's like, I know. But in the dark, Morganville was still hers. Always.
Dun, dun, dun.
Because it was, when all was said and done, now a human town with human values. But in the dark, Morganville was still hers, always, and serious. Oh, but it's gross as well because it's like this scene has like foreplay between the two of them. Like he kisses her on the hands and she gets like the shivers, and I'm just like, whoa. Like, because Emily is like, described as like, I think she was like late teens, early 20s. I think that's how old she is physically. How old? I think I know the answer, but I just want to confirm. Yeah, there we go. Oliver is physically 59.
Yummy.
So he's old enough to be her grandfather. I'm just going to put it like that. And they're banging. I mean, like that's like with young, have kids young, your kids have kids young, and then old enough to be grandfather, but still old enough to be grandfather. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a chance Emily's older than Oliver, but I feel like that's irrelevant. He's old, like he looks old and she doesn't. And just ekes me out. Because also he's not a very attractive man and she's stunningly beautiful. Like, have you seen what Oliver Cromwell looked like?
Yes, I have. I have indeed.
I'm not gonna lie though, not how I picture him. It's not how I picture him.
Yeah, I know, right?
Not at all how I picture him.
But that's how it ends.
That's how it ends. And yeah, so it's been a long 15 books. It took us a long time to do it.
It did.
But we got there. Yeah, I think we've decided, at least not for a while, are we going. Don't even know when we'll consider doing a series this long again.
Not for a while, for sure.
Well, like, I mean, how many series? Like, okay, Mercy doesn't count because it's been spread out over so many things. Because we're doing them as they come out now. But House of Night, I think, is the only other one that we've done that's so long.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I will never not be okay that there will not be a second Dicestis book. I mean, I'm okay with it, but I'm also not okay with it.
It's not cool.
It was painfully fun.
Yeah.
It was painful, but it was fun. The pictures. But yeah, we're done. We're done with Morganville. Another series ticked off the list.
Yep.
So what are we doing next again? Did you text me the name?
Here, I'll go ahead and do it.
Thank you.
We're doing a book called Clash of Eagles next.
That's right.
Anyways, we're doing a book called Clash of Eagles next. It's a book that my boyfriend asked us to do because he wants to do a book club with us.
Sorry.
I
went to look it up, and I did it on this window instead of a new tab. Sorry.
So we'll probably do that this week or beginning of next week.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting because, we don't do many not primarily urban fantasy with the occasional high fantasy.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be different.
It'll be very different. So that's what we're doing next, and yeah, I think that's really it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we will be doing that, and we will be also doing the Ixia series at some point too.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to Addie and see when.
Yeah, but anyway, we will see you guys next time.